taking heavy fire! We're going down! Brace for impact, brace! Keep going! Almost there! Just a little further! Can't stop now!
She walked in, looking like she'd never seen a day of real war. Blonde hair pulled back, uniform perfectly pressed, not a single medal, badge, or decoration on her chest. And every man in that room made the same mistake. They looked at her and thought they already knew everything. They were about to get the most humbling lesson of their military careers. Fort Lancer's Integration Day was supposed to be routine. Instead, it would expose the ugly face of prejudice and the breathtaking price of underestimating a soldier based on appearance. What happened to recruit Emily Kessler wasn't just disrespect, it was a ticking time bomb of military justice, waiting to explode. The morning sun beat down on Fort Lancer as fresh recruits filed into the strategy instruction room. Among them was Emily Kessler, 25 years old, blonde hair pulled back in a regulation bun, piercing blue eyes quietly scanning the room. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, but conspicuously free of insignias or decorations. She moved with an economy of motion that went unnoticed by most. "Find your seats quickly, people. We don't have all day." Sergeant Ramos barked from the front, a weathered 50-year-old drill instructor notorious for breaking recruits before they even got started. His gaze settled on Emily as she took a seat in the back row. His lip curled slightly. Emily opened her notebook, pen poised, face neutral. The classroom buzzed with pre-class chatter, mostly male voices dominating the acoustic space. Sergeant Ramos slammed his hand on the desk, silencing the room. "Welcome to Advanced Strategic Operations. I'm Sergeant Ramos. I've served 3 tours in Khorasan and 2 in North Africa. I've seen things that would make your nightmares have nightmares." His eyes scanned the room and stopped at Emily. "This isn't charm school, people. We need warriors here, not cheerleaders." Several recruits snickered. Emily's expression didn't change. "The enemy won't care about your feelings. They won't care if you had a bad day. They will kill you, your squad, and everyone you've sworn to protect if you show weakness." Ramos approached Emily's desk, looming over her. "Recruit Kessler, what made you think you belong in Advanced Strategic Operations?" Emily met his gaze steadily. "My previous assignment, sir." "And what assignment was that?" "Combat medic, special operations support." Ramos paused, then smirked. "Right. Social media coordinator, maybe." Laughter rippled through the room. A male recruit leaned toward his buddy, loud enough for half the class to hear. "Bet she joined to post selfies in uniform." Emily simply returned to her notes. Her silence was mistaken for submission, rather than the controlled discipline it actually was. "Don't waste my time, Kessler," Ramos sneered. "This program has a 70% washout rate, and that's for people who actually belong here. I've sat in rooms like that one before, not this room, but rooms where people look at you and decide the story before you've said a single word. The hardest thing isn't the insult, it's staying quiet when you know exactly what you're carrying, and choosing to let your record speak for you instead." Emily knew. She always knew. For the next hour, Emily absorbed the lecture material while enduring sideways glances and whispered comments. She answered questions precisely when called upon, but offered nothing more. As class ended, Ramos announced, "Tomorrow, full military background presentations. Each of you will present your service history, medals, and combat experience." His eyes flicked to Emily. "Some of you might have very short presentations." Emily gathered her materials and exited, her face betraying nothing of the storm brewing beneath. What would you do in this soldier's boots? Comment below if you think this drill sergeant is crossing the line. What nobody at Fort Lancer knew was that Emily Kessler's military record had been partially classified. 3 years earlier, Emily had been deployed as a combat medic with the 58th Airborne Medical Division, attached to Special Operations Forces during Operation Black Talon, one of the most intense covert missions of the past decade. Her first deployment had been a baptism by fire. Dropped into an active hot zone, she performed emergency surgery under enemy fire, saving 4 operators whose extraction had gone catastrophically wrong. The bullet that caught her in the shoulder that day earned her first Purple Heart. Emily didn't speak about that day, not about the searing pain, not about the way she continued working on the wounded operator while a fellow medic dug the round out of her own flesh. She received a commendation that remained sealed in classified files. 2 months later, she was back in the field. Operation Black Talon had expanded, multiple teams infiltrating hostile territory to extract high-value intelligence assets. Emily's helicopter came under fire during a medical evacuation. "We're hit! We're going down!" the pilot screamed as the aircraft spun violently. The crash landing left 3 soldiers critical, and Emily with a punctured lung from shrapnel. Despite this, she dragged 2 unconscious operators from the burning wreckage before collapsing. Purple Heart number 2. Her recovery took 8 weeks. The military psychologist recommended extended leave. Emily requested reassignment to active duty instead. "Are you sure, Specialist Kessler?" her commander had asked. "Nobody would think less of you for taking recovery time." "There are soldiers who need medical support, sir," she responded. "That's where I belong." Her 3rd Purple Heart came during an ambush, the 4th, when her forward operating base was hit by a mortar strike while she performed emergency surgery. The 5th and final one occurred during her last mission, when she ran through open ground under sniper fire to reach a downed soldier. When they finally pulled her from the field, Emily had saved 43 lives. The toll on her body included 5 separate wounds serious enough to warrant evacuation, a collection of scars that told stories she never volunteered, and nightmares she had learned to endure in silence. The High Command's decision to reclassify her for strategic operations training hadn't been her choice. "You've given enough blood, Specialist Kessler," General Holden had told her. "Now, we need your mind." Emily never wore her medals. She kept them wrapped in cloth, tucked away with photographs of the teams she'd served with, many faces now gone. Her transfer paperwork to Fort Lancer had been processed with minimal information, standard procedure for personnel coming out of classified operations. Sergeant Ramos couldn't have known any of this when he mocked her in that classroom. To him, she was just another fresh-faced recruit whose appearance didn't match his conception of a soldier. In her temporary quarters that night, Emily laid out her uniform for the next day's presentation. Beside it, she placed the small wooden box that contained her 5 Purple Hearts. She hadn't displayed them in years. Tomorrow would be different. As she prepared for bed, her phone buzzed with a text from her former unit commander. "How's the new assignment, Doc?" She typed back, "Interesting. Background presentations tomorrow." The response came quickly. "Going to show them who you really are?" Emily paused before answering. "If necessary." It would become very necessary. "Do you think Sergeant Ramos is about to get what he deserves? Smash that like button if you're ready for some military justice." The next afternoon, the strategy room hummed with tension as each recruit stood for their military background presentation. Most displayed 1 or 2 commendations, described deployments in places like Germany or South Korea. A few combat veterans garnered respectful nods from Sergeant Ramos. Staff Sergeant Jenkins presented an impressive array of 4 commendations from his time in artillery support, 2 tours in combat zones, including the Kabul sector and Operation Northern Shield. Ramos nodded approvingly. "Solid experience, Jenkins. That's what we need here." Lieutenant Cooper followed with 3 medals, including a Bronze Star. Ramos practically beamed. Now, that's a soldier's record. Take notes, people. With each presentation, the bar seemed to rise. The anticipation for Emily's turn grew palpable. Several recruits exchanging smirks. Emily sat quietly, her expression unreadable. Kessler. Ramos finally called, "Let's get this over with." Emily stood and walked to the front of the room. Her movements were measured, economical. She placed a small wooden box on the desk. "Specialist Emily Kessler," she began, her voice steady. "Former combat medic, 58th Airborne Medical Division." Ramos raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. Emily opened the box and carefully arranged 5 Purple Heart medals in a row on the desk. The medals gleamed under the fluorescent lights, their purple and gold unmistakable. Complete silence descended upon the room. 5! Someone whispered in disbelief. Ramos stared at the medals, then at Emily, his expression frozen between shock and disbelief. "This can't be real," he said, approaching the desk. "You were in Operation Black Talon?" Emily nodded once. "I was medevaced 5 times, but I finished every mission." Ramos picked up one of the medals, examining it closely, as if suspecting a counterfeit. The weight of genuine military decoration sat heavy in his palm. "How many lives?" he asked, his voice suddenly lacking its earlier edge. 43 confirmed," Emily replied. Possibly 47, but 4 were still critical when I transferred them." Lieutenant Cooper broke the silence from his seat. "Holy, you're Doc Kessler." Emily's eyes flicked to him, a flash of recognition. 12th Rangers. "My brother was with the 12th. He told me about a medic who performed surgery during a firefight after being wounded, said it was the most incredible thing he'd ever seen." Emily didn't respond, but something in her posture shifted slightly. Ramos was still staring at the medals. "Why isn't this in your file?" "Most of my service record is classified, Sergeant. You didn't have the clearance." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. The recruits who had been snickering just minutes before now sat rigid in their seats. "Why are you here, in basic strategic operations, with this record?" Ramos asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "High Command recommendation after my 5th medevac," Emily said simply. "They decided my field service was complete." She reached into her pocket and produced a folded document, which she handed to Ramos. His eyes widened as he read it. "This is a personal recommendation from General Holden," he said, his voice barely audible. Emily nodded. "May I continue my presentation, Sergeant?" For the first time, Ramos looked uncertain. "Proceed, Specialist. Get ready, Cruiser, because the reveal is coming, and it's going to be epic. Or, subscribe if you want to see this arrogant fool get put in his place." While Emily continued her presentation with clinical precision, Fort Lancer's command center was buzzing with activity. Sergeant Ramos had discreetly messaged his superior officer, requesting immediate verification of Specialist Kessler's credentials. "Sir, I have a recruit claiming 5 Purple Hearts from Operation Black Talon. Need immediate verification." Colonel Barrett, Fort Lancer's commanding officer, frowned at the request. 5 Purple Hearts? That can't be right," he muttered, typing Emily's service number into the secure military database. His eyes widened as the classified files began to unlock with his security clearance. "Good Lord," he whispered as he scanned the documents. Back in the classroom, Emily was describing her final mission in measured tones. The extraction point was compromised. We had 4 critical patients and limited cover. The nearest landing zone was 3/4 of a mile through contested territory. The room was dead silent. Even Ramos stood perfectly still. We moved our patients through heavy fire to the secondary extraction point. I took a round here. She touched her left side. approximately 20 minutes into the movement. Not a sound could be heard except Emily's voice. Despite the injury, we completed the extraction. All 4 patients survived. I remember the first time I heard a story like Emily's, told quietly, without drama, in the back of a mess hall by someone who looked like they could have been anyone. No medals on display, no urgency in the telling, just facts, laid out like a field report. That's what real courage looks like. It doesn't announce itself. It just does the work and comes home. In the command center, Colonel Barrett was on a secure line with General Holden's office. "Yes, sir. She's here at Fort Lancer. Sergeant Ramos is requesting verification of her service record." The voice on the other end was clipped and authoritative. "Tell Ramos that not only is Specialist Kessler's record legitimate, but she's also under my direct observation. She's being evaluated for potential officer candidacy." Colonel Barrett's eyebrows shot up. "Yes, sir, I understand." He hung up the phone and penned an immediate memo to Sergeant Ramos. His aide rushed it to the classroom. The door opened just as Emily was concluding her presentation. A private entered, handed Ramos a sealed envelope, and quickly departed. Ramos opened it, his eyes scanning the contents, his face visibly paled. Emily stood at attention. "That concludes my presentation. Any questions?" Sergeant Ramos cleared his throat, suddenly looking profoundly uncomfortable. "No questions, Specialist Kessler. Thank you for your extraordinary service." Emily nodded once and returned to her seat. The other recruits stared at her with new eyes, some with awe, others with shock, all with respect. As the final presentations concluded, Ramos seemed distracted. When the session ended, he approached Emily. "Specialist Kessler," he said, his voice notably more respectful. "Colonel Barrett would like to see you in his office immediately." Emily gathered her medals and documents. "Yes, Sergeant." As she walked out, the room erupted in whispers. Lieutenant Cooper caught up with her in the hallway. "Is it true you performed a field tracheotomy under fire?" Emily glanced at him. "Your brother exaggerates. I was only under sporadic fire at that point." Is justice about to be served? Drop it in the comments if you're ready to see what happens next. Outside Colonel Barrett's office, a senior officer was waiting. "Specialist Kessler, I'm Major Richards. Now, we've been expecting you." Emily nodded. "I assume this is about my presentation, sir." "Partly," Richards replied, "but mostly about your future assignment. General Holden has taken a personal interest in your placement here." For the first time, a flicker of surprise crossed Emily's face. "Don't look so shocked, Kessler. Did you really think they sent you here just to take notes in Ramos's class?" Colonel Barrett's office was Spartan, but impressive. Service plaques and unit flags displayed on the walls. He stood as Emily entered and extended his hand. "Specialist Kessler, it's an honor to have you at Fort Lancer. Please, have a seat." Emily sat at attention. "Thank you, sir." Barrett studied her for a moment. "I've just had a very interesting conversation with General Holden's office. Are you aware that you're being considered for the Officer Candidate School Fast Track program?" "Sir, this is the first I'm hearing of it." Barrett nodded. "That tracks with what I was told. This assignment to strategic operations was meant to be an evaluation period." He placed a folder on his desk. "Your record speaks for itself, Specialist. What happened in that classroom today was unfortunate. Sergeant Ramos didn't have the proper clearance to access your full service history." "I understand, sir. No offense was taken." Barrett's expression suggested he didn't quite believe her. "Nevertheless, adjustments will be made. Starting tomorrow, you'll be participating in this course as a special advisor rather than a standard recruit." Emily blinked. "Sir, Your field experience in Black Talon provides invaluable practical knowledge. We'd be fools not to utilize it." Back in the barracks, word had spread like wildfire. Recruits gathered in small clusters, discussing the revelation of Emily's service record. 5 Purple Hearts, Jenkins kept repeating. "Do you know how rare that is? There are generals who've never seen that much combat." Cooper nodded. "My brother said the medic who saved his unit was some kind of guardian angel, had no idea it was a woman, much less someone who looks like Kessler." When Emily returned to the barracks that evening, the atmosphere shifted perceptibly. Gone were the smirks and whispers. Instead, she was met with respectful nods and a new kind of silence. Across the base, Sergeant Ramos sat in his office, reading through the unredacted portions of Emily's file that Colonel Barrett had authorized. His face grew more somber with each page. The next morning, the class assembled as usual, but with one significant change. Emily's seat in the back was empty. Ramos entered, his demeanor noticeably subdued. "Attention!" The class snapped to their feet. "Before we begin today, I want to address yesterday's presentations. In particular, I need to correct some misconceptions about Specialist Kessler." He cleared his throat. The door opened and Emily entered, followed by Major Richards. She wore the same uniform, but now with proper insignia and a specialist's rank clearly displayed. "Specialist Kessler will be joining our program in a new capacity," Ramos announced. "She'll be serving as a special advisor on field medical operations and combat scenarios." The recruits exchanged glances. Emily took a position near the front of the room, posture perfect, expression professional. "Additionally," Ramos continued, his voice tight but controlled, "I owe Specialist Kessler an apology. My comments and assumptions were inappropriate and unprofessional." He turned to Emily. "I apologize, Specialist. It won't happen again." Emily nodded once. "Accepted, Sergeant." Major Richards stepped forward. "Specialist Kessler's experiences in Operation Black Talon provide invaluable insights into real-world strategic applications. You would do well to listen carefully to her perspectives. Are you shocked by this transformation? Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more stories of hidden heroes getting the respect they deserve." For the remainder of the week, the dynamics of the class transformed completely. Emily's contributions during discussions revealed a deep understanding of battlefield realities that the textbook theories couldn't capture. Her calm descriptions of treating catastrophic wounds while under fire left even the most experienced combat veterans in the room silent with respect. By Friday, Sergeant Ramos was regularly deferring to her expertise on medical evacuation scenarios. The recruits who had once snickered now took detailed notes when she spoke. Lieutenant Cooper approached her after class. "My brother wants to thank you personally when he visits next month, if that's okay." Emily offered a small smile, the first anyone had seen. "I'd be honored. Your brother's unit fought bravely that day." The tide had turned. The so-called cheerleader had become the teacher. The final week of the program culminated in a comprehensive field exercise, a simulated combat scenario designed to test everything the class had learned. Traditionally, Sergeant Ramos selected the most promising recruit to serve as mission commander. The class gathered at the briefing room. Tension thick in the air. Everyone knew this final exercise could make or break their evaluations. Ramos entered, followed by Colonel Barrett and Major Richards. The room snapped to attention. "At ease," Barrett said. "This final exercise will test your strategic thinking under pressure. You'll be facing a complex hostage scenario with limited resources and unclear intelligence." Ramos stepped forward. "For this exercise, we need a mission commander who understands both the tactical requirements and medical contingencies." His eyes scanned the room, settling on Emily. Specialist Kessler will serve as mission commander. There was no surprise in the room, only nods of approval. Emily stood. Thank you, Sergeant. I accept the responsibility. For the next hour, Emily laid out a comprehensive strategy that integrated combat operations with medical support in ways the standard doctrine didn't address. Her plan accounted for variables that only someone with her unique experience would anticipate. The primary extraction route leaves the medical team exposed here and here, she explained, pointing to the tactical map. Based on my experience in similar terrain, we should establish a secondary covered route through these coordinates. Colonel Barrett watched with undisguised approval. When the briefing concluded, he addressed the class. I've observed many training exercises over my career. Rarely have I seen planning of this caliber. He turned to Emily. Specialist Kessler, General Holden will be very interested in my report. The field exercise the next day went even better than anticipated. Emily's team executed the mission with precision that impressed even the evaluators. When an unexpected complication was introduced, simulated artillery striking near the extraction point, Emily calmly adjusted the plan without missing a beat. Second squad, redirect to the tertiary extraction point, she ordered through the radio. Medical team, prepare for incoming casualties from the strike zone. Her decisions saved the mission from failure. When the exercise concluded, even Sergeant Ramos looked impressed. Outstanding performance, Specialist, he said during the debrief. Your field experience clearly translated into effective command decisions. That evening, as the program came to its official close, Colonel Barrett addressed the entire class. You've all shown remarkable growth, he said. Some of you came here with preconceptions that have been challenged. Others discovered capabilities you didn't know you possessed. His gaze lingered on Emily. And some of you reminded us all of an essential truth in our military. Never judge a soldier by their appearance, but by their actions and by their heart. After the ceremony, Sergeant Ramos approached Emily privately. I've been assigned to oversee training at Camp Reynolds next month, he said. But before I go, I wanted to tell you something. Emily waited, her expression neutral. In 20 years of service, I've made many judgments, some right, some wrong. He looked her directly in the eyes. My judgment about you was the worst mistake of my career, and I'll carry that lesson forward. Emily extended her hand. We all have lessons to learn, Sergeant, even those of us with 5 Purple Hearts. As the program dispersed and the recruits prepared for their next assignments, Emily received orders to report to Officer Candidate School the following month. General Holden himself had signed the recommendation. That night, as she packed her medals away, Emily's phone buzzed with a message from her former commander. Heard about Fort Lancer. Holden says you're headed for OCS. Proud of you, Doc. She smiled and typed back, just doing my job, like always. In the end, it wasn't the medals that defined Emily Kessler. It was the quiet strength that had earned them. The same strength that had allowed her to withstand judgment without bitterness and prove her worth without boasting. The cheerleader had become the commander, and Fort Lancer would never be the same. Before you go, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We want to see how far this story has traveled. And hey, if this twist caught you off guard, hit that like so we know you're loving it. That was intense, but there's more where that came from. Click the next video right now to see another arrogant drill sergeant get humbled when he messes with the wrong recruit.